would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Sue Brady, and I have 3 kids and a husband and a great little dog. So.
Okay. Could you please tell us a story of your health concerns or illness? You can share any medical diagnosis you would like, and from your own perspective.
Okay. So you want me just kind of give my history of what I've been through?
Mm-hmm.
I have been dealing with metastatic colon cancer it's been about 7 years now. I was diagnosed in August of 2011. I went in for a colonoscopy because I was 50, and I came out of the colonoscopy with a diagnosis of stage 3 colon cancer. I ended up having surgery about a week later where they took out half my colon and one of my ovaries. I started chemo probably a week or so after that, and I'm going to refer to my notes because I've had a lot, so if I look down, that's what I'm doing. I was actually released from the hospital on my 51st birthday, so it wasn't a great 51st birthday that year. I started a regimen of chemo. It was called Full Fox. It was really tough. I started to lose my hair about a week later. I didn't lose all my hair, it just got really thin. I had a reaction to cold, so anything I would touch, if it was cold, even opening my fridge door, grabbing milk, I would get tingling in my fingers. I had numbness in my leg, in my calf, which I still have from that chemo, and my nose. I have a constant runny nose, even though I haven't done chemo for, it's been a little over a year and a half, so that's one of the side effects that have stayed with me. My first chemo, we came home, I thought, I'm so tired. I went upstairs to lay down on my bed. I immediately had a reaction. I couldn't breathe, I was wheezing. We went to the ER. They had thought maybe I'd had a stroke because I had a really hard time talking, even though I wasn't paralyzed, but they think now that was just probably the chemo, and 5% of people have that reaction that I did, so it was really rare to have that reaction. The following year I had a couple more colonoscopies and had polyps removed. So the doctor, just over the last 7 years, they just said I tend to grow polyps. I guess it's just what my body does. November 5th of 2012, I had my first PET scan, and they found a spot on my liver. And my doctor said we can either biopsy that, sorry, my voice kind of went weird. We can either biopsy that spot or we can wait and do a scan in a few months. And I just thought, I can't wait 3 months to know what it is. So we did the liver biopsy, which was really hard because the spot was on the dome of my liver, which was by my lung. So there was a good chance of them puncturing my lung when they did the biopsy. So the doctor would have me go in and out of the CAT scan machine to get the most current picture that he could, then stick the needle in, send me back through the machine to get another picture. And it was extremely painful, that biopsy, but it came back negative, so that was a good thing. February of 2013, they thought it might be back, so I went in for another colonoscopy. Dr. Sandhu from LDS Hospital did that, and usually people are asleep during their colonoscopies. I had to be awake because if he needed me to adjust or move on the table, which is it was hard to have a camera stuck up your bum with a bunch of people in the room and you're wide awake. I mean, and that happens whether you're awake or asleep, but when you're asleep, you're not aware of everybody watching. So it was kind of embarrassing there. But he took the samples that he needed, and I could kind of tell by his reaction that things might not be going good. And we waited for the pathology report while I'm laying still on the table, and it came back, and it was bad. He said it was back, there's nothing we can do. And the way he worded it and the way I took it was like, this is it, there's nothing we can do, I'm gonna die. And so the drive home was really hard from Salt Lake. And I don't know why my voice is shaking. I don't know if I'm nervous or whatever, maybe just memories. But I can remember exactly where I was on the freeway. And I looked over and my husband had a tear, running down his face. And he didn't know what Dr. Sandu had told me, that this was, there's nothing we can do. I thought, I can't tell him that. So he was just knowing that the cancer had come back. That's why he was so upset and had the tear. And I remember planning my funeral on the drive home. I thought, who am I going to have speak? Do I want a funeral? Do I want music? I just remember planning the drive home thinking, this is it. My kids are still fairly young. They were in their early 20s, and I just thought, I'm not ready to die, but I am. And then, I don't remember what day of the week that was, but the following Monday, I got a phone call from my colorectal surgeon, Dr. Kim, who is chief of surgery up at LDS Hospital. And he said, you know what, we can go in and do surgery and we can take care of this. And so then, it's like this whole light just opened up. And so I told my husband then that I thought I was going to die. I was planning my funeral. And he's like, why didn't you tell me that? And I said, because I saw your reaction on the way home. I mean, you had tears running down your face. And I thought I couldn't tell you that. So I ended up having surgery. Dr. Kim had told me going in, we might have to take the rest of your colon out. And if we do, you'll be left with a bag. But there's a procedure that they could do called a J pouch, where they make basically a colon out of your small intestine. So he said, that will be the option. He said, but when I open you up, if I see a bunch of cancer, I'm just going to close you up because there's nothing I can do. He goes, so I want you to know that. And I remember waking up in the recovery room, and the first thing I did is I looked at the clock and I thought, oh good, it's been several hours. So I thought, I must be okay, because if he would have just opened me up and saw a bunch of cancer, he would have closed me up. And the time, it would not have taken that long. So I thought, he didn't see anything bad. But he did end up taking my whole colon out. It was so bad, full of disease. And I got the J pouch, but I had a temporary ileostomy. So I had a bag for about 9 months. They're not as bad as people think. I'm glad I don't have it now permanently, but I just thought this is going to be the end of the world. But at least I have my life. But the bag wasn't as bad as people think, and I think no one knew I had it. You couldn't tell. You couldn't see it through my clothes. There was no smell. It was fairly easy to maintain. It was kind of just more of a hassle. But about 9 months after that, I had that reversed, because that had given the J pouch that he had done time to heal and work. And that was, I went in the hospital December 19th, and I ended up being in LDS Hospital for 2 weeks, because I had a bunch of complications and it wasn't working. And Dr. Kim one day came in and he goes, I don't know why this isn't working, why all these tests are bad, and that, due to my religious beliefs, there was a lot of prayer in my family. And the next day he came in and all the blood work was how it should be. And he goes, I don't know how this happened. It was pretty much a miracle. And in my head, I'm thinking, it was God. He heard all the pleas and the prayers that were said in my behalf. So it was kind of an interesting Christmas. I spent the Christmas in the hospital, but my kids on Christmas Day brought up a Christmas tree and decorated my room, and so that was really nice. It was a hassle as well, because the drive from my home in Pleasant Grove to LDS Hospital is a little over an hour. So my husband at night, some nights would be able to sleep up there, but it was with work and stuff, for him coming back and forth, that was difficult. And then, so that was December of 2013. Am I talking too much? Okay. November of 2014, it came back again for the third time. So I went through my original chemo, full fox. The second time I had gone through a chemo called full fury, what didn't affect me as bad as the full fox. but the full Fox seemed to work better. So it was back to the tingling and the numbness, the neuropathy, the hard time with anything cold. I would go to restaurants and ask them to bring me warm water, and they would look at me like, oh my gosh, that lady's kind of weird. But I would just say, it's too hard to explain, but just, if you can bring me warm water instead of ice water. So I went through 3 months. This session, it was every other week of chemo for 12 sessions. And then I would go and spend all day, I would spend 8 hours at the chemo clinic in American Fork getting infused, and then they would put a fanny pack on me. And I have a port, they would hook it up to my port, and I would wear that for 2 days, go in Wednesday. They would unhook that, I would go back Thursday, and I would get a new Neulasta shot. So those were long weeks for me. I want to go back to when I had the reaction the first time when I went into the hospital. It was due to a drug called oxaliplatin. And instead of infusing it over 2 hours, my oncologist, Dr. Breyer, she started to infuse it over 8 hours. And I didn't have a problem after that with the longer infusion, but I'd spent literally the entire day at the clinic laying in a chair being, with the chemo drip. So the third time I started chemo was that November 2014. When I finished that, I started a maintenance chemo in April of 2015, and I did that until December of 2016. And about 3 months before I quit the maintenance chemo, I had gotten down to, probably I was about 95 pounds. And my doctor wanted me to stop, my husband wanted me to stop. They said, you're killing your body, you just kind of need to get healthy. And I go, I'm not ready to stop yet, because in my mind I felt like doing the chemo was an insurance policy. As long as I'm doing chemo, the tumors aren't going to grow. That's what I kept thinking in my head. But in December, when I had gotten down to 89 pounds, I finally quit. I was exhausted. I was literally killing myself. I was, dying because of the chemo. My doctor had said, once you get down to 90 pounds, it's not going to be your choice. I'm going to stop it. But I decided myself that I had gotten down to 89 pounds. And after that, I started, gaining the weight back, and I haven't gained all my original weight back, but I had started gaining some of the weight back. In the summer of 2015, I started falling a lot, especially at night when I would get up to go to the bathroom or, just go up into the bedroom to go to bed. I would fall. And one time I hit my lip really bad on the bathroom counter and ended up getting 6 or 7 stitches from my lip. And if you look close, you can see a little scar up to my nose. But getting those stitches was the most painful thing I think I had been through, because that's so sensitive. And getting those numbing shots, I thought, oh, I can't stand this. But what happened, they did an MRI on my brain, and I had a spot on my cerebellum. And they said that's why I kept falling, because that's, I guess, the part of the brain that does balance. But it was inoperable. So they said we can try a procedure called gamma knife, which was an intense radiation. And so we did that. It was supposed to be 90% effective, and it worked for me. And this MRIs I've had since, it hasn't come back. But it involved screwing a halo into my head. And it was so weird to me, because it was just like a drill you could get at Home Depot. It was a Black & Decker, and I just remember I had 4 screws, 2 here and 2 here, and then the metal halo. And then they stuck me in the machine. They hooked that halo into the machine, so I literally couldn't move, because they had to get that ray of radiation right on the spot, and I couldn't move an inch at all. So that was kind of interesting to get that screwed into my head. I'd also done radiation with the second time I was diagnosed. Sorry, my timing here, I'm kind of going back in time. And when they do radiation, they tattoo you so they know where to send those beams. So I have little blue dots. I probably have about 9, a few down my chest, on my sides, and down on my hips from where they've done radiation at different times. and I don't know if you guys have ever had a tattoo, but they hurt. I mean, and mine were just those little dots. It looks like somebody wrote on me with a blue ink marker, and like that I've never showered them off. And you know, sometimes people have said to me, "Oh, you've written on your chest." No, it's a tattoo. But anyway, so if you're ever thinking about getting a tattoo, they hurt, seriously. Just that little dot, I thought I was going to go nuts. So back to my timeline. The Gamma knife thing was in November of 2015. I had lost so much weight that they decided to do a feeding tube. So I started a feeding tube in November of 2015, and they had, it went into my nose, and then I had a solution that I would put in the tube to feed me. And I was still eating normal food, but because of the chemo taste in your mouth and feeling sick all the time, I didn't feel like eating. And so they thought this would supplement and help me, but it caused so much diarrhea, which on top of the chemo, having the J pouch, having no colon was already an issue. Anyway, that I didn't do it. I was like, you know, the teenager that you try and tell them to do something and they won't do it. I can't do it, it makes me sick. So then my oncologist had them take it from my nose and they put it directly into my stomach, thinking maybe that will help. And it didn't. It was just as bad. I was really delinquent. I didn't. And I told her, I don't like doing the stuff. It just makes me sick. So we eventually took the feeding tube out. And then, so that was 2015. September 2016, I got an infection. We're not sure what, but I was on IV antibiotics 7 days a week for 5 weeks. So I had to go into the clinic every day and get infused with antibiotics, so that was also a hassle. Like I said earlier, I stopped the maintenance chemo December 2016. March of 2017, I woke up, I had really bad pain, so I went into the clinic. They did some tests. I had a bowel blockage and kidney stones. So I was admitted to the hospital. They did surgery for the kidney stones. The bowel blockage took care of itself. And then about a week later, they did a second surgery called lithotripsy, where they go in and blast the kidney stones. And they also put a stent in, which they took out about a month later. And they tell you that doesn't hurt, but don't believe them, that really hurt, pulling that stent out. And I wasn't prepared for it, so they just yanked it out, and it hurt. And then also that month, I had a spot on my lung, which they did radiation on. And then the December of 2017, so about 9 months, 10 months ago, I had a PET scan and it showed another tumor on my lung and one on my liver. And so I had, in January of this year, a resection, first on my lung, and the tumor came back benign, so that was good. A month later, in February, I had the resection of my liver, and that tumor was malignant, but they got the tumor that hadn't spread to the lymph nodes, so everything was good. They took care of all that. And then last Monday, I did a CAT scan, and that came back clean. And then I did blood work on Wednesday, which came back good. So right now, I'm doing pretty good. So I see my oncologist in December, and we'll go from there. So that's kind of my history.
Thank you. What have you learned from your medical treatment? What more would you like to find out about your health from your physician or other healthcare providers?
I'm sorry, what was the first question?
What have you learned from your medical treatment?
I have learned that I had a lot of people say, you should go to Mexico and do this. You should do oils and do this. I have learned that, in my opinion, God put smart people on this earth for a reason. Scientists, doctors, that have come up with these drugs to help us for a reason. And chemo may take you to the brink of death, but to me, I believe it also saved my life. So I believe in the medical profession. I've had amazing doctors. I've been so blessed to have great doctors that I think have been very smart and helped me. And I also believe, for your second question, I want to stay current on when I have to have my scans and when I have to have procedures done. And you know, since I've been diagnosed, everybody I know that's 50, I'm like, get your colonoscopy. You need to get your colonoscopy. You know, get your mammogram. Pushing people to get it because I would hate, even my worst enemy, I would not wish it on anybody to go through what I've gone through the last 7 years. I've had 3 of my doctors tell me I shouldn't be here. I mean, I should not be alive, but by the grace of God, I believe that I'm here. I believe I'm here because of them. I believe God has directed them in helping me get this far.
What kind of support or help do you need on a daily basis? Where do you find your support?
I find my support in my family. My husband has been an amazing support. I think he could be a doctor for all he's been through without even going to medical school. When I had the bag, he would change the bag. He would go with me to my chemo sessions, my doctor's appointments. When I had scans, he would go, and he would just sit in the lobby and wait for an hour or 2 hours. But he would go, he was always there. My kids have been an amazing support. They've come to watch me if my husband's at work, visit me in the hospital. I've had friends that have just been amazing. My neighborhood, people bringing meals and notes and cards and visits, and I think that stuff is so important, and I feel so terrible for people that don't have that kind of support, because I've been really blessed that way.
What does it mean to you to have all those people in your life? How did it affect you to see your family and your husband and your kids there for you?
That their love is so unconditional, and that my husband could still love me and still tell me I'm beautiful when, you know, my hair was this long and I'm 89 pounds and I'm a bag of bones, and you know, I had scars. My last surgery, I have a scar that's about this long and it's in the shape of a hockey stick. I mean, right down the middle is bright purple keloid scar, and still love me, and my kids, they still think I'm cool. I mean, you know, so the support has been, I couldn't have done it without them. And you guys met my dog earlier. We got him after I quit work just to keep me company, and it's not like he's a special kind of dog or anything, but he's been loyal. It's like he knows when I'm sick. He'll come lay on the bed with me. He sits on my feet. He sits on my lap. He's just, even the support of an animal. And I had my liver surgeon, Dr. Zendejas, said that he believes that animals are the best thing for people to heal. He actually asked us if we had a dog, and we're like, yeah, you know. He said he believes that 100% that animals are good for that. So even my dog's been a good support. So he did chew through my chemo tube once when I had the fanny pack on. And I thought, I can't tell my oncologist, she's gonna kill me. So I called the clinic and I said, my dog just chewed through my cord. And they go, well, is he okay? And I go, yeah, he seems fine. Because he was sitting on my lap, and he was just a puppy at the time. And I looked down because I felt kind of wet, and it was, you know, it went from a fanny pack into my port right here. It's a beautiful, lovely bump in my skin. But he was fine, and I went in and they just fixed that. So he's kind of a little story in himself.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your relationship with your faith and how that's helped kind of guide you through this medical excruciating process?
I think when something like this happens, whether it's an illness or a divorce or a death, when anybody has anything bad happen in their life, and we all do, none of us are going to get through life without it. I believe you can either, my higher power is God. He's my spiritual thing. Other people have different things. I think you either turn to that or you turn against it. I turned to God. I never blamed him. I never said, why me? Because I think, you know, why not me? You know, little kids that are 2 and 3 year olds get cancer. Why, you know, why not me? So I became more in tune, I think, with God and with prayer and my faith. And the more I talk to my doctors, I had a very close relationship, or have a very close relationship with my oncologist. And she doesn't proclaim any faith. She describes herself as spiritual. But she has said, she has told me, I have an angel on my shoulder that tells me what to do, how to help people. And I remember one time just thanking her so much, because I said, you've saved my life, you've kept me here. She goes, it's not me, and she pointed upwards to God. So I thought, even she, who's done so much for me, doesn't rely on her own knowledge. I mean, she acknowledges help from God, and that I think also cemented it in me too. And I just, I'm a religious person, and I just feel like God has been there. And like I say, I've had 3 of my doctors tell me I shouldn't be here, and that, I'm still here. And I think it's my faith in God, and He, I think, I'm here for a reason, whether that's to help other people, to be an example, to be a light for someone. There's a reason I'm still here, and I think God's the one that's in control. And like I say, He's made smart people like you guys becoming doctors, the scientists, everybody that is involved in cancer research. I mean, they're here. You guys are here for a reason. It's to help people like us. So, I once asked my colorectal surgeon, "Why would you be a poop doctor? Why would anybody do that?" And his response was, "So I can help people like you." So I think the medical profession, and you guys, I admire you guys for going into it. I have nothing but respect. But I've been blessed, like I say, with great doctors and nurses and technicians. People are so caring when I go in for treatment. It's amazing.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, my chemo side effect of a runny nose. I have Kleenexes in my car, every room in my house, everywhere I go.
Is there anything you would like us to know on top of all of the story you've shared? Any message you want to give us?
Just when you become that doctor and you're getting your patients, to just let them know you care. And not like you wouldn't, but I feel like the relationships I've had with my doctors, I know they care about me. And I know I'm like one patient out of 1,000 that they have, but I feel like I'm the only one. Dr. Kim, my colorectal surgeon, referred me to my liver surgeon, and I hadn't seen Dr. Kim in a couple of years because I, had been okay with his part of the process. But he knew I was in the hospital having surgery on my liver this past February because he had referred that surgeon. And as I'm laying in my hospital bed, I'd been in the hospital a couple days, in comes Dr. Kim to visit me. And I thought, who does that? And he had just been driving by IMC Hospital and stopped in to visit me. And yet I hadn't seen him for a couple of years, but that's the kind of guy that he just is. I say my oncologist, I have a very personal relationship with her. And so the advice I would give is just let them know that you care and that your treatment, the way you treat them is everything to you. It means as much to you as it does to them.
Yeah. I have a few follow-ups. So you mentioned in around February of 2013 how you went through this really difficult time where I believe it was your second time where you were diagnosed again. And you had kind of mentioned 2 different physicians. You had talked about the physician who had done your colonoscopy and how you were kind of shocked by his result. And then you talked about Dr. Kim and how he made you see a new light. So can you walk us through that process and maybe what more emotions you were going through? How did it feel interacting with those physicians, what you would have preferred in that kind of situation?
I think Dr. Sandhu is the one that did the colonoscopy and is the one when the pathology report came back into the room. I personally wish I couldn't have heard the phone call because I didn't like hearing that, but even though I would eventually get, the information. But when he said there's nothing we can do, I think the way I was feeling, I just took it like I'm gonna die. But I think it was from his perspective of just being the one that did the colonoscopy. There was nothing, he couldn't go in and cut anything out. It was from his perspective. And so when I got that phone call from Dr. Kim, like, yes, we can go and we can do surgery, we can, you know, if we have to take out the whole colon. That was just it. I just thought, okay, there was new hope. To where I was literally planning my funeral on the drive home from Dr. Sandhu, and then with Dr. Kim, it was like, you know, the light. And I have total respect for Dr. Sandhu. It wasn't nothing he did. It was just, I think the way I took it when he said there's nothing we can do. Did that answer your question? I know it sounded kind of rambling on, but.
No, that's, thank you. Okay, I have a few more, but do you guys have other follow-up questions? Would you be comfortable sharing with us maybe some photos you may have, either of you, of your family, maybe of some of the lab tests you got, or something like that we could embed in the video?
Yeah, do you have a second?
Can we follow you with
Oh,
the camera?
oops, I forgot. Yeah, well, I could just grab my phone. I don't have a lot of pictures of me being sick, just because I didn't want a lot of pictures, but. Okay.
Oh, you have them on your phone, okay.
Yeah,
I'll get them.
there's one, that was the shortest my hair ever was.
Can I record you as you talk, and then would you feel comfortable maybe sending us those photos, if that's okay with you?
Yeah.
I'm just
So when I started losing my hair, I went to the girl that's done my hair for 20 years and just said, because it was coming out, and it wasn't much longer than it is now, but it was just coming out in handfuls on your pillow, and it's just hair everywhere. It was gross. And I remember she cut it short, and I remember coming home and just sitting in my closet bawling, because I'd never had hair that short, but I'm sorry. But that's as short as it ever was. And it was really thin, but my chemo wasn't the kind that made it all fall out. I would probably have to, I don't want to waste your guys' time. I could find some pictures and then, you know, text them to you. If you want me to do that. Because I know I do have a few. It'd take me too long to find them with the tubes up my nose and when I was kind of skinny. But I can do that and I'll send them to you.
Thank you. And you also talked a lot about your family and your dog, and we would love to, if that's okay with you, maybe include some photos.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And if you want, you can take pictures of anything in this room. My house is like, my kids are my entire world. They really are. And so I have everything. And I just had a grandson. He'll be 2 next week, and he's that little guy right there. He's the greatest. So, but yeah, I can, if you want to take pictures of any of these, and then I can go through my phone and send you some.
Will do. Maybe I'll just walk around for a little bit. I don't know if this is going to be the most effective.
Can you take pictures of them?
Yes.
I don't know how, but.
Okay, I just stopped the recording now.
And a lot of pictures, like if you want, like so you want my kids and stuff. I don't know how many do you guys want? I could send you 1,000, but I'm not gonna. I promise I won't send you 1,000. But most every picture in here is like I have on my phone or something, so I could take pictures. And so do you want like 10? Do you want like 5? Do you want 20?
Up to you.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you guys can just go through. Okay,
Yeah.
that would be kind of neat, I think, too, to see that on the video thing. I know Dalton, my son that's in med school, was excited for this interview because he goes, I've never really heard the entire story. When I was first diagnosed, we're LDS, and he was on his LDS mission. So he missed the first few months, and he goes, I would like to really just sit down and hear everything from beginning to end. So it would be nice to have the pictures on the video. So.
Do you have any messages for your children or any young children who maybe have to go through something like this with their own parents? How was that relationship for you? And you don't have to answer. I know it's a difficult question.
No, I could say, I'm an open book, so if you guys think of anything, to me, anything I can say to get awareness of this disease or any disease to help people, I want to do. My kids, I want them to stay vigilant. They've all had colonoscopies in their 20s because of me, and their grandfather, my husband's dad, had colon cancer as well. Several years ago. So they've got it on both sides of their family. So I would want them to stay vigilant. My kids were always pretty close because they're all within 2.5 years of each other. I only have 3 kids. But this experience has brought them even closer because they kind of relied on each other to get through it. So I would want them to stay vigilant and stay on top of it, and I want them to be aware of other people that may be going through this and help them in any way that they can, by sharing their experiences that they've had with me, if that can help someone else. Did that answer your question? I sometimes feel like I start rambling. It's because I'm old and I have chemo brain, although Dalton will tell you that's not a real thing. And I'm like, yeah, it really is. So do you guys think chemo brain's a real thing? Okay, good. Because he's like, Mom, it's not a real thing. I'm like, it is. Yes, my husband and my other 2 kids, and they're like, you have to repeat everything you tell her 15 times, and it's real.
Well, you're his mom, so you're always perfect in his life.
I better be. Too, and we were always close as a family anyway, but going through this has been even closer. I remember a time when I was going up to bed, and I was on Ambien because I was having a hard time sleeping, and I didn't take that for very long because some people it makes crazy, and it made me crazy. And I remember both my boys helping me walk up to go to bed because I was still really weak at that point and falling. And I remember getting out of bed in my underwear and coming downstairs, and I didn't think at the time, I didn't realize it because I wanted to tell. My oldest son was married at the time. I wanted to tell my daughter-in-law. I felt like I hadn't told her goodbye. And I thought, oh my God. When I later realized I had come downstairs in my underwear, and here's all my adult kids, and just so I could tell my daughter-in-law goodnight, and they just laughed. I'm like, okay, yeah, she's kind of crazy, but it was kind of a weird experience for me. So I don't think I did Ambien after that because it made me kind of nuts.
Is there anything else you would like to share with us?
No, I just want to get out there. My amazing doctors, Dr. Wendy Breyer, my oncologist, Dr. Kim, my colorectal surgeon, and Dr. Zendejas, my liver surgeon. Amazing doctors, so if you guys ever have the chance to work with them. Oh, one thing, when I'm thinking of good doctors, I wanted to bring up, I also had my second surgery when Dr. Kim took out my entire colon. I also had a complete hysterectomy because it had metastasized. And I remember talking to Dr. Dodson, who's an OB up at the U, a cancer specialist. I don't know if you guys have met him or heard of him. Great guy. But I remember meeting with him on my consult, and he put his hands up and he said, your tumor's about this big. And so about 8 inches by 4 inches. And I thought, where does that fit? How does that fit? How does that not stick out? I didn't understand, but my husband is from Tennessee, and he was wearing a Tennessee shirt, so Dr. Dodson started talking to him because he was from Tennessee. And then they both talked about how they were recollecting things. They both played football, and they had played football against each other when they were in high school. And I'm like, okay, you guys, this is about me, my tumor. What are we going to do? Do your football talk when I'm recovering. So he was another great, funny guy, good guy if you ever have a chance to meet him at the U.
Sorry, I have one more follow-up question. We talked a lot about kind of like time 2 and time 3, but could you walk us through just a little bit more the emotions, your initial diagnosis, like the first time around you went to your doctor, and kind of what happened, what was running through your mind, how did you tell your family, and all that such?
Yeah, when I when I had my colonoscopy, I planned to go to lunch with my daughter that day, so, I thought, I'll go have the colonoscopy. Really, it takes probably 15 minutes. It doesn't take long at all. I'll be home soon. And I remember waking up and, Dr. Solomon, who did the procedure at American Fork, was saying this is bad. He wanted to do surgery that day. That's how bad he was saying it was, which they didn't do because, I didn't even have a surgeon yet, and they needed to do CAT scan and more tests. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to go to lunch with Braden, who's my daughter, and she kept calling my husband and saying, well, when are you guys coming home? When are you coming home? And he didn't want to tell her over the phone. Mom and I are supposed to go to lunch. And anyway, so we came home that night, and my oldest son and his wife and my daughter were here because Dalton was on his mission. We remember just sitting down in the kitchen and telling him, and my daughter, she lost it. And I remember my son just going over and hugging her and holding her like that. I'm so grateful they have that relationship, that they have each other. And then it just seemed like such a blur. I had surgery a week later. I was doing chemo a week later. It all happened so fast, from just a regular routine colonoscopy to sitting in the cancer clinic with a drip, chemo dripping in me. And I would lay there, and it's kind of a sad, because there were 6 or 7 chemo chairs. So, us patients would be sitting there together, all getting our chemo, and I would see young people come in, which would just break my heart. Like, not little kids, but like there was a few teenagers, and then people that were 80 years old. There was such a range of people, and we all laid there, and there was just so much support between all of us, because we were all going through hell at the same time, and we all understood what we were going through. So any little thing we could do, we became friends. Any little thing that we could do to help each other out. I remember ordering these little elephant charms, because elephants with an upturned trunk mean good luck. So I remember, those, and then when I would go to chemo, passing them out to different patients, because, you'd see different people each time depending on what their chemo regimen was, and just little things like that we would do. Or when somebody had their last chemo, there was a bell there that they would ring, and the rest of us all sitting there like so weak in our chairs. Yay, we're so excited for you. Be happy for them, even though we were feeling miserable at the time. So that the emotion, it was hard. But again, I think the support got me through. And then, the second time it hit, it was really hard, because I thought, okay, after the first time I thought, oh yeah, I made it, I'm done. It hit the second time, and it was devastating, especially when I said I was going to die. But then I got through that, and then it came a third time, and it was just like, okay, I'm going to kick cancer's ass this time, sorry. But I thought, it's not going to beat me. And it hasn't beaten me. I've beaten it on my brain, I've beaten it on my lung, I've beaten it on my liver, I've beaten it on my female organs, I've beaten it on my colon. It's not gonna get me. I'm just, I have a motto. It's, gladiators, they wipe up the blood, stitch up their wounds, and live to fight another day. And that's how I take it, a day at a time, and just try to have that gladiator mentality that it's not gonna beat me. So now the emotion is just like, I'm the one that's kicking ass. It's not cancer doing it. And sorry for my language, but you just sometimes that's just how you gotta do it.
Along those lines, would you have any kind of advice or words of message for someone who may be going through something similar, or someone who's going through chemotherapy and cancer treatment and the whole?
I would say to not give up. I was talking to a neighbor yesterday who's a good friend, who's going through some really bad health issues with Lyme disease, and his heart is starting to be affected. And he's got 4 kids, and they're all young. They're teenagers, which, they're young. And I'm just like, don't give up. You need to keep fighting, because he's kind of to the point where I'm done. My neighbor across the street, who's been dealing with cancer for 17 years, and we've had the same oncologist, so, you know, we talk a lot. His is non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. He's done with treatment. He said, I'm just done. He goes, I can't do it anymore, and he's literally was given a couple weeks to live. And so that's hard, because I want to say, Tim, you just need to fight. You need to keep going. But at the same time, I know how awful it is. I know how sick you get. I know how weak you feel. You know, you have constant diarrhea because of the chemo. You're throwing up. You just lay around like a vegetable. You can't work. You can't eat. It's miserable. And he goes, I'm done. I've done it for 17 years. I'm done. So my advice is, you know, find your motivation. My motivation is my family, my husband and my kids. And the neighbor I was talking to yesterday actually said to me, he goes, your motivation is your kids. That needs to be my motivation. And I said, yeah, you know, you need to find what works for you. But I'm not ready to go. I just turned 59. I know that's old. My kids would tell you that's really old. But I don't feel like I'm old. I don't feel like I'm ready to go. So I'm very motivated to fight this disease. And my oncologist said that's one of the reasons I'm still here, is because my attitude and willing to fight it is a big part, a big piece of the puzzle. So.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much. Do you guys have any questions?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
So, if you guys have any follow-up, please feel free to call me, text me, whatever. I don't mind. Really, I feel like this disease, I'm an open book. I just want to get it out of there, that you can get help for this, and that you can, you know, and I'm not out of the woods. I'll probably end up dying from cancer, but, you know, not today. You know, and like I say, my scan this week was good, so, you know, that's always good news and always a good motivator. So.
Thank you.
You're